okay, why is this important for us as human beings? Why is it important? Because we created a system in which no one was trained in this, right? So how many of you, when you were coming up, you got your BA or your teacher certification or your MED or your PhD or your MFT or master's, how many of you, whatever you got a course in this? None of us, right? I didn't either. No. So very few of us. If we got something on gender, it was about, I would say, the ship, the moving ship, which is gender roles. Gender stereotypes, gender roles, those are key terms we learned coming up. Masculine stereotypes, masculine norms, gender norms, all of those things, which are the ship. That's the moving ship. But we didn't get the lighthouse, right? So we created systems that misinterpret or don't fully understand these differences. My earliest observation, so of course I started this back in the 80s, and at that time it was very easy to observe this discrepancy in like pre-K. You could just see it, because those wonderful people taking care of kids, and they are wonderful people, they got no training in any of it. So, and they were almost all female, right? And so they would naturally do what is beautifully natural to them, which is no slam on it. It's gorgeous, it's wonderful. They would just try to get everyone to use your words. And there would always be a bunch of boys that were getting expelled and suspended and in trouble because, well, their word centers hadn't even developed yet, right? I mean, they had very few word centers at 2 and 3 years old, but their sister or their female friend had lots of word centers. She was able to use those words, but no one knew. The male and the female brain are set up differently. So then if you have a system, like a school system, let's say, that has thousands and thousands of kids, you got to amplify that, right? Now you have hundreds and hundreds of males who are not seeing the world the same way the females are seeing the world. And you multiply that by all the children in the US and of course in the world, New Zealand, everywhere, you say, oh wow, now we're talking millions and millions and millions of boys who are thinking spatially. They want to throw an object through space to show their love, or they want to jostle, and they're not as good yet at the word part. We should keep training them for words, but not as good yet at that. So, but the system, it doesn't sustain them. And so a lot of them can adapt. They're resilient, their genetics are resilient, they have not experienced trauma, so that doesn't set them back. They get good nourishment, all sorts of factors that can help them to just sort of make up for the fact that the system isn't set up well for them. But you're gonna have millions and millions of them who are not resilient, are extreme male brain, very spatial, very mechanical, etc., and those guys will lose them. And as we know, as I think everyone knows, that's mainly what we're losing in the Western world, in our schools, is these boys. So part of the lighthouse is spatial. So to be practical, and of course my job is to get you this stuff, and then you're gonna have, everyone else is gonna be giving you strategy after strategy after strategy. But I will introduce a few. Okay, so visual graphics, spatial mechanical, that's stuff, and the mechanical part is the doing part. And so those of you who are, for instance, I'm sure my age or older, but even some folks younger than me, you may remember that there was a lot more doing in school, 50 years ago, 60 years ago. There was more doing and less sitting and talking. Now there's more sitting and talking and less doing, and that's a formula we got to reverse. Every few minutes we got to have them doing stuff, doing the project, building it, making it, and the whole day. You want to build it for the whole day. All right, build something. Because what happens when they're doing, the cerebellum, which is at the base back here, the cerebellum in males is larger and it's more active than in females. And so this doesn't mean doing is bad for females. It's great for females. But for these males who can't learn without it, it's because it's so active, we got to get the cerebellum involved. And if they're only sitting and not doing, then they're not building memories, they're not really learning. But once we get the cerebellum involved and they're doing it, that's what we call project-based learning, right? Project-based. They do the project, and it's not just that they're moving around, it's that they store more memories, right? So the hippocampus is more active, so they're going to store more memories. So then 10 years from now, they're going to remember how to do this. Whereas if we give them a worksheet, right? I mean, like yet another worksheet, They will do this worksheet because they're good people, and everything on the worksheet will be forgotten because they were just sitting there going, oh, I got to check this, I got to do that, right? They won't remember it because cerebellum wasn't involved.